Hello everyone, and welcome to this latest video. And I wanted to do a video reflecting on the January transfer window for all clubs in the Premier League, looking at my top 5 most interesting inclusions or additions to the Premier League this month, and yeah, just an overall review of how it went down. So let's start, guys, with the window as a whole. It was quite interesting. I think I read a stat that it was the second highest in terms of total expenditure of a transfer window since the Premier League started in January. So there were a lot of toings and froings, people coming, people leaving, and I thought I'd start with my most interesting new addition to the Premier League. And for me, it is Luis Diaz, the wide striker that has arrived from Porto this window, and he's gone to Liverpool for a reported fee, I believe, of £49 million. So, Colombian national player, and he's been very influential this season for Porto. He's racked up a number of goals for them in all competitions, including the Champions League. We've seen him play for Porto against Liverpool in the Champions League this season. So he's done very well, and he was also a very productive player for Colombia in the Copa America last summer. He scored 2 goals, I believe, in the third place playoff against Peru, including a spectacular goal in there as well. So I really think Liverpool have got a gem here. They've got a really top quality striker slash wide winger. And I think he could be the difference that could definitely cement them second spot in the Premier League and possibly keep Manchester City honest in terms of a title race. And if you look at Liverpool at the moment, they have got 3 or 4 outstanding strikers: Jota, Firmino, Mane and Salah. But 3 of those guys, Mane, Firmino and Salah, they are maturing into their later years, let's say, as top players. So they've still got lots of football left to offer, but you feel as if Luis Diaz, with his age profile, 23, 24, he's going to carry Liverpool forward into the next few seasons and ensure they really maintain that position as a top club. I think this is a real symbol of Liverpool's intentions to remain at the top table as one of the best clubs in Europe. And I think another thing to consider with this is the slight doubt over Mohamed Salah's contract extension. So Luis Diaz just takes the pressure off that for them, and it ensures that they'll have enough firepower in that front line moving forward. And it gives Liverpool options. They can change the front line and without losing anything in terms of the balance of the system. So I think this is a really strong move from Liverpool. I know they were really keen on getting Diaz on board. Tottenham had a bid rejected for this player, and Liverpool sent a representative out to Argentina, I believe, during this recent international break to get the medical done and ensure Luis Diaz completed that signing. So I think this is a really positive one for Liverpool, and for me it's the most exciting transfer of the window. I think the Premier League are getting a real star. I think he's one of the best players in South America at the moment, certainly from an attacking perspective, and I think this is really going to be a star signing in the Premier League as well as for Liverpool. So that's my most interesting signing. For me, the second most exciting, noteworthy signing of the window would be Bruno Guimaraes. So Newcastle have signed a central midfield player from Brazil, 24 years of age. And again, this guy has been very influential in what Brazil have been doing particularly in their younger teams. So in the Olympics, he was the captain in the Tokyo Olympics last summer, and he captained Brazil to that gold medal. And reading a report about Guimaraes, Tite has praised his qualities as a leader. I think Newcastle are getting a real leader, a very strong personality, a real competitive engine in midfield, a player that can get from box to box. He's good at the defensive side of the role, but he can also initiate attacks and start movements further up the field. So I think Newcastle have got a fantastic signing here. Arsenal were linked with him, and as an Arsenal fan, I'm actually a little disappointed we didn't sign Guimaraes, but I'm still really excited to see how he gets on in the Premier League. I know Tite, the Brazil manager, has compared him to Kevin De Bruyne in terms of his attributes, and I think that can give us a little clue about the kind of player we might expect from an energy point of view, getting up and down the pitch. So really looking forward to seeing Guimaraes in action, and I think he again is a real flagship signing for Newcastle in terms of their intent in this league, trying to stay up. Obviously, it's a new regime, so the Newcastle ownership has a lot of money, and they are presumably aiming high. And I think Guimaraes is a real symbol of that as well. So those are my first two people. Now, numbers 3, 4, and 5 are all about one club. Now, this club, guys, is Everton. So I'm going to start with the manager of Everton. So Everton have got a new coach, and it is Frank Lampard. Now, Frank Lampard was obviously a very successful player. He was Chelsea's all-time leading goal scorer in the Premier League, and he's in the top 5 or 10 in terms of all-time Premier League goal scorers across all teams, and that is from central midfield. So this guy has contributed a lot of goals from central midfield. He's definitely a legend of the Premier League as a player. And his managerial career so far has been promising. He showed signs at Chelsea. He guided them to the 4th place finish in that 2019-2020 season, when they had their transfer ban as well. So that was a really positive start for Lampard. I do feel, though, that this job is quite a big job for the guy. And I'm not quite sure how it's going to go down at Everton. So we did see towards the end of Lampard's time at Chelsea that he was getting a little bit rattled. He was getting a little bit tetchy with the media. He was offloading the blame onto the players all the time. He was getting a little bit defensive in terms of questions about his own management. So he was maybe a little bit, let's say, not ready for the full package of being in that spotlight as a Premier League manager, with all the questions you get from the media, the speculation, the constant pressure of the position. So will such a similar story play out at Everton? Will he find that the job gets a little bit too much for him? So Everton are in a difficult position at the moment. They're only a few points off the bottom 3, so they're in a relegation fight. There's been a little bit of unrest in the dressing room, a bit of a bizarre end to Rafa Benitez's time as manager, where he changed the chief medical officer, he got rid of a couple of players, Luca Dean, and all of a sudden he is then removed from his job. So the man that destabilised the setup at Everton was then replaced 2 or 3 days later. So Lampard is now walking into a very difficult environment. Let's see. He certainly carries a name. He's got a reputation, obviously, a great player that he was. So let's see how it goes for him at Everton. It's certainly a big test. So that's my first element with Everton. My second interesting inclusion at Everton would be Dele Alli. Now, he signed a fee that could rise to 40 million depending on appearances. Now, Dele, fantastic talent. Unbelievable start to his career. The first 2 or 3 seasons he had at Tottenham, he got to 50 goals in the Premier League faster than Lampard, Gerrard and Scholes. I think that was a statistic that was bandied around, and he was obviously a key player for England. He performed well at the 2018 World Cup, where England got to the semi-finals. He's had a little bit of a trickier time since. He's not quite been able to maintain that consistency, and what you felt like he needed a move away from Tottenham, and he's got that move, and he's going to be working with Frank Lampard. So this is interesting. A guy that was being described as almost the next Frank Lampard in terms of his style of play. He's gone off the boil a little bit from a performance point of view, can Lampard get the best out of Dele? That's going to be a very interesting angle. And as a Dele Alli fan, I really hope it works for Dele, and I hope we see the best of him and it can really resurrect his career, because everyone knows what a fantastic player he is and what a talented player Dele is as well. That leads me into the fifth most interesting element of this transfer window for me is Donny van de Beek. So Donny van de Beek signed from Ajax to Manchester United in, I believe, August 2020. Didn't work out for him, or hasn't worked out for him at Manchester United. He's struggled for game time. He hasn't really had much of a run out there. And listening to a Dutch journalist speaking about Donny on Sky Sports News recently, he was referring to the fact that maybe playing in Dutch football, it's not quite as physical, or there's not as much fouls going on. It's a little, you have more opportunity to play, to pass, to show your flair and to get on the ball, maybe a bit more time to do what you need to do. In the Premier League, you're constantly harried and charged down by defenders, rushed. You don't have that luxury of the time on the ball. Be interesting to see at Everton. Obviously, it's a slightly less pressurised environment than Man United. Can Donny get an opportunity to play in a setup where his skills can be best optimised and best utilised? So that, for me, is another intriguing angle to this transfer window. Okay, people, those are, for me, the top 5 main stories of the transfer window. I'm sure you guys have different ideas, or maybe other ideas that you want to add into the mix. I'd love to hear your views. Fire away. What do you think? How will these 5 players, managers go that I've talked about? Are there any more that you're really excited about seeing? Christian Eriksen returns to the Premier League for Brentford after his heart scare at the Euro 2020 last year. That's obviously huge. So what are your thoughts, guys, on all of the outgoings, ingoings? Are you happy with your team's transfer window? Do you think it's set you up for the rest of the season? Okay, people, thanks as always for watching, and have a wonderful day. Peace.